This week, William H. Macy, Tom Cruise, and Julianne Moore star in a modern morality tale, Magnolia.
Jodie Foster is governess to a royal household in Anna and the King.
And Robin Williams is a cybernetic Bicentennial Man.
Have you ever been hit by lightning? It hurts. It doesn't happen to everyone. It's an electrical charge that finds its way across the universe, and it lands in your body and your head.
William H. Macy stars as a quiz kid turned very quizzical in Magnolia, the new film from Boogie Nights director Paul Thomas Anderson. And that is one of 5 big new movies we'll review this week. I'm Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Joyce Kulhawik, film critic for WBZ-TV in Boston. Hey, Raj.
Hey, and now to Magnolia, which I think is one of the best films of the year and certainly one of the most audacious, which is not exactly saying the same thing. It cuts back and forth between several stories that unfold in a rainy Los Angeles, where fathers and children are at war, where love seems impossible, where everyone seems to be half into show business, and where everyone seems to be half dead. One story involves a cop, played by John C. Reilly, who falls in love with a woman without seeing her clearly enough to realize she's strung out on drugs. She's played by Melora Walters.
You don't know how crazy I am.
It's okay.
I've got troubles, okay?
I'll take everything at face value. I'll be a good listener to you.
I started this, didn't I?
Whatever it is, just say it. You'll see.
You want to kiss me, Jim?
Yes, I do.
Another story, Jeremy Blackman plays a little genius who's under tremendous pressure to win on a game show.
Are we going to continue with this game?
Yes.
Hey, look at me. Look at me. You are 2 days away from this record. Okay? Nobody's ever done that. You get through this, I'll get you anything you want. Anything.
Another story, the host of the game show, played by Philip Baker Hall, is dying of cancer.
I have about 2 months. I have no time. It's in my bones. I don't have a chance.
Oh.
And still another thread, Julianne Moore's elderly millionaire husband is dying, and she's filled with regrets. Philip Seymour Hoffman is the old man's nurse.
Yeah, I'm going to turn away and walk away and not look at him. And not be my man, my Earl. And tell him it's okay. I'm okay. Tell him thank you for taking care.
And Magnolia also features Tom Cruise as a professional stud who conducts seminars on how to seduce women. Here he is giving a TV interview.
Are you close?
She's my mother.
Yes. But, I mean, she's a woman, too. So, you know, how does she feel about seduce and destroy? I mean, what does she say?
Well, she says, you go get him, honey.
All of these stories are compelling, and some of them are funny, and some of them are very sad. Despite cutting back and forth between them, Anderson is able to build up an uncanny amount of tension and dread in this movie. Magnolia is an urgent film. It's long, but it hurtles ahead through fears and dreams, and then, toward the end, there's a scene of transcendent wonder. A scene so unexpected and arbitrary and inexplicable that it pulls the rug out from under our traditional ideas of narrative and shows that the best laid plans of frogs and men go off the stray.
I am so amazed by what you're saying about this movie because it almost seems as though you liked it.
I loved it. It's on my list of the 10 best movies of the year.
Oh, incredible. I'll give you this.
Okay.
I thought it had a good cast.
Yes.
I think it has a good filmmaker,
Yes.
worthy themes, parental neglect, the way it damages children and families, but the film is a mess. I really thought that all of these stories would have come together in some sort of unexpected, synergistic way. There would have been some sort of epiphany
Joyce,
at the end.
that's the
And these
whole
stories don't
point.
come together, and we're led to think that they will based on the initial little
That's what I
encapsulated
was gonna
stories
say.
at the beginning of the
That's
film.
the whole point about the beginning of the film, where we have Ricky Jay narrating this little story about urban legends and strange coincidences and threads that come together and so forth.
Exactly.
In order to show you at the end of the film that instead of everything coming together the way you're led to think they will, something utterly unexpected can appear out of a clear blue sky.
Utterly ludicrous. I will only call
No
this
more
a
ludicrous than anything else.
climax of biblical proportions.
Yes, but that has actually happened.
It may have happened.
Yes, it actually has happened.
It should be a transforming event.
What it transforms at the end is our expectation that every movie has to be dead in the water and be predictable and be formulaic and in the way we expect it to. This movie is alive and free to surprises.
It makes no sense. On to the next film. Our next movie is based on the classic children's book by E.B. White, Stuart Little. In the movie, Mr. and Mrs. Little, played by Gina Davis and Hugh Laurie, go to an orphanage to adopt a child and meet Stuart, warmly voiced by Michael J. Fox.
You know what's wonderful? What's wonderful is how you both know what the other one is going to say before you even say it. Not that it's any of my business.
When the Littles bring Stuart home, he meets another member of the household, Snowbell, their cat. Snowbell is hilariously voiced by Nathan Lane.
You seem tense.
Tense? Oh, I'm way past tense.
Well, maybe I can help. What do you like? Can I scratch your ears? I can rub your tummy.
How'd you like to rub it from the inside, mouse boy?
Stuart also runs into resistance with the little son, George, played by Jonathan Lipnicki.
I'm not really sure I want a brother.
Well, how about a friend?
I guess I could always use a friend.
This film makes poignant observations with gentle humor, as in this scene where Stuart poses for the family portrait.
What's wrong?
Well, it's just, you four look great together.
This is the happiest moment of my life. I feel 10 inches tall.
That scene sums it up. Stuart Little finds a charming balance of all its elements. There are lovable characters with real problems who find truthful, never cute answers to questions about identity, family, loyalty. Most commendable of all, though, is the way state-of-the-art technology here is used to support, rather than overwhelm, a very tender story, and to create in one little mouse a living, breathing, three-dimensional character with enormous humanity.
I hated this movie even more than you hated the first one. And I'll tell you why.
Why?
Stuart Little is only a mouse. Now, in the book, he expands psychically to take up as much space as the human characters. But in the movie, he looks grotesque and bizarre at every moment. They tuck him in, and he doesn't even need the hem of the blanket to cover himself up. He is so small and vulnerable that at no point was I able to see this movie as anything other than an extremely sad and peculiar story about these people who thought they had adopted a child, and they have adopted a 2-inch rodent.
First of all, you're never laboring under the misapprehension that they think they've adopted one thing and have something else. It's just presented as a very normal thing, and I thought I couldn't accept it. But within 30 seconds of looking at Stuart, I never saw a mouse. I only saw Stuart. And I think that while you may have read the book, and it's unavoidable to make that comparison, it's not entirely fair.
No,
a book works on a whole different canvas. You need to use a whole different set of criteria.
I know.
This works as a movie.
This works as a book, but it doesn't work as a movie. And little Stuart, with his piping little voice and his preppy little jacket, struck me as somebody who belonged in an all-mouse version of The Great Gatsby.
No, it answers a lot of questions that people have today about what makes up a family.
Later in the show, Robin Williams plays a robotic Bicentennial Man.
I saw the inner me.
And coming up next, Jodie Foster in Anna and the King.
You cannot shut the world out forever.
Well, thank you for you. It's beautiful. These are monkeys at Summer Palace.
Now then, this must be you. I shall hang it on my wall at home.
It's a story that's familiar from musicals and films. In the mid-19th century, an English widow travels to Siam to be the teacher for the king's children, and he has a lot of them, 58, with 10 more on the way, and several dozen wives and concubines. And he is an absolute ruler who puts people to death for defying his will and believes in the divine right of kings to be selfish and arrogant. He's played by the Hong Kong star Chow Yun-fat, and the teacher is Jodie Foster.
My husband was never threatened by my ideas or my opinions.
And because I am also such, I will allow you to always stand upright in my presence. Providing head shall never be higher than mine.
An unspoken romance blossoms between Anna and the king as they dance together, but they cannot bridge the gaps of class, position, and race which separate them.
And most of the world believes that A man and a woman should share a relationship which is sacred only unto themselves.
Each one of my wives believes same about king.
Not everyone can marry you, Your Majesty.
Then enemies try to overthrow the crown, and the king moves to protect his family from dangerous intrigue.
Alak's army has found us. If you cross us the bridge, everything I love will die.
But they're only children.
Yes. And each one heir to the throne.
This story, of course, is familiar from The King and I, and the best thing I can say about Anna and the king is that at least it doesn't have the king repeating his tiresome phrase, etc., etc. I have never understood, however, the appeal of this relationship between a sadistic polygamist and a sanctimonious prude. King Mongkut is approximately as enlightened a ruler as Joseph Stalin, and Anna's attraction to him is an illustration of Henry Kissinger's observation that power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. It's creepy the way this essentially unsavory story is told as if it's a fairy tale romance. I just don't really think the movie dealt with what was really there.
You know, this really worked for me, and I happen to like this director's work. Okay. Ever After, it is like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
And she was not a prude, and he did not seem like any sadistic. I thought they had phenomenal chemistry. In fact, it's the best on-screen romantic chemistry I've ever seen Jodie Foster have with anybody.
I don't think so. I think she looks kind of standoffish and a little bit disapproving of this guy.
And intellectual, and she's a little buttoned up, and he kind of breaks her down, and that's what makes this romantic. It fuels that chemistry.
I feel that Foster is a very, very intelligent actress, and I thought that she was sitting there saying, this is really dumb.
Oh, the dialogue was superb, and I thought they were evenly matched and really, really lifted each other up. I thought they were emissaries of conflicting worlds. I thought it absolutely worked. In any case, coming up next, robot Robin Williams explores the human condition in Bicentennial Man.
Northam Robotics, household model, NDR 114.
And so, a robot is born. The year is 2005, and that's Robin Williams in Bicentennial Man, a film partially based on an Isaac Asimov short story. In the film, Andrew, the robot, has just been bought as a household appliance, but he has the potential to be more. In a scene clearly designed to capitalize on Williams' comedic gifts, Andrew begins to develop a sense of humor by practicing jokes that he learned from his owner, Sam Neill.
What is a brunette between two blondes? Translator. Do you know why blind people don't like to skydive? It scares their dogs. A man with dementia is driving on the freeway. His wife calls him on the mobile phone and says, "Sweetheart, I heard there's someone driving the wrong way in the freeway." He says, "One, there's hundreds."
Over the next 200 years, Andrew sets out to be all that he can be. He's physically upgraded to look more human.
Just keeping you on your toes. I don't have any toes. You do now.
And Andrew also gradually begins to experience human emotions and eventually seeks out a relationship with the great-granddaughter of his original owner. She's played by Beth David.
No, sir is dead. Little Miss is getting older. You don't like me, but at least you'll talk to me if I knock on your door long enough.
Is that a joke?
No. Would you like to hear a joke? This Buddhist walks up to a hot dog vendor and says, "Make me one with everything."
Unfortunately, the more human and alive the robot becomes, the deadlier the film becomes. The movie loses its sense of humor, forgets about most of its characters, narrows its focus, and lurches forward decades at a time as Andrew watches the people he loves grow old and die. Bicentennial Man doesn't have a handle on its tone. It resorts to the baldest exposition to tell its message instead of revealing it dramatically. I felt sorry for the kids who saw this film at the screening that I attended. Instead of a happy tale of a robot who becomes human, it's a grim and artless ode on mortality.
You know, at last we totally agree on something. I agree with everything you said. This movie, at the hour point, my thumb was solidly up. I really liked the first hour. I thought, this is really interesting. And then it just turns into soppy sentimentality. It repeats itself. It meanders. It just goes on and on and on into one banal platitude after another until you just want to have it be over.
And they don't show you the life. They would have you think that to be human is to die. That's it. If you get that point, you understand the whole thing. But what about the journey?
Yeah.
Did he learn anything? Did he change? Did he grow? Did he have an adventure? We don't see it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Our next movie is one of the best films I've seen about the process of creating and staging a theatrical production, about the technique, the business, and the inspiration of the theater. It's named Topsy-Turvy, and it's the story of the Gilbert and Sullivan production of The Mikado, in a 19th century England where they were theatrical giants but had egos that were all too human. Early in the film, Sullivan has announced that he will write the music for no more collaborations. He feels a calling to more serious composition. Jim Broadbent plays Gilbert, and Alan Cordiner is Sullivan.
My orchestrations are becoming repetitious. I've rung all the changes possible in the way of variety of rhythm. I have such respect for your words that I have continually kept down my music in order that they can be heard. It's no more than word setting.
Solomon, I have always subordinated my words to your music.
No, I think not.
Then Gilbert tempts him with a new inspiration, a musical comedy about Japan, a country which was just being discovered by fashionable London. The movie pays great attention to the process of getting a show ready for the stage. Here, the tireless Gilbert rehearses his actors.
Merely corroborative detail intended to give artistic verisimilitude to a bald and unconvincing narrative.
No, Barrington, an otherwise bald and unconvincing narrative.
Was that incorrect? I do beg your pardon.
No, sir. That has only just occurred to me.
To an otherwise bald and unconvincing narrative.
Much better.
Will The Mikado be a hit? Well, the previous Gilbert and Sullivan collaboration, Princess Ida, was not seen as a high point. Timothy Spall and Kevin McKidd play actors who wonder if the Gilbert and Sullivan reign is about over.
Do forgive me, dear boy. I don't wish to be the prophet of doom, but one cannot help but have the distinct feeling that the sword of Damocles hovers ominously over the Savoy Theatre.
In The Mikado, Timothy Spall plays the title role, little suspecting here that Gilbert is tempted to cut this famous song right out of the show.
My obstacle sublime, I shall achieve in time to let the punishment fit the crime, the punishment fit the crime.
Topsy-Turvy has been written and directed by Mike Leigh, one of my favorite British filmmakers who usually deals with modern stories in films like Secrets and Lies. This is a wonderful movie that deals with the financial details, the salaries, the personnel problems, the personal lives, the costumes, the staging, all of the physical and mental labor that goes into producing a show. Topsy-Turvy, like Magnolia, is on my list of the best films of the year.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. One of the scenes here, to me, says it all. One of the actors is getting into his costume for the Mikado, and he's complaining because he's not going to be allowed to wear his corset. And first of all, I didn't know that Victorian men wore corsets, but it reveals what Mike Leigh does. He dresses the characters and undresses them. He shows you all the layers. This is so richly detailed.
And I love the scene where Jim Broadbent, as Gilbert, rehearses the actors. Back and forth, and back and forth. And try it this way, and try it that way, and get this exactly right.
It's what Mike Leigh does.
Yes, and as that scene is allowed to play, there's as much about the theater in that as any scene I've ever seen in a movie.
Absolutely. Great film. Okay,
when we come back, by a happy coincidence, a classic British version of the Mikado has just been released on video.
Presenting the first ever full-length animated motion picture, exclusively in IMAX theaters. Walt Disney Pictures' Fantasia 2000, the IMAX experience. 7 all-new journeys into the imagination, along with a classic favorite in a motion picture unlike any other. Walt Disney Pictures' Fantasia 2000, the IMAX experience. Rated G, coming January 1st to selected IMAX theaters worldwide.
No sooner had I enjoyed the new film Topsy-Turvy than I was able to come home and watch the new DVD of a 1939 British film of the Mikado. Newly restored and looking great, this production stars many members of the D'Oyly Carte Company, including some who had actually known Gilbert and Sullivan. So you can compare rehearsal scenes in Topsy-Turvy with a film of a real D'Oyly Carte performance. Let's have some fun doing that right now. This is from Topsy-Turvy.
3 little maids from school are we, but as a schoolgirl well can be, filled to the brim with girlish glee. 3 little maids from school.
And now here's the same song in the 1939 production.
Everything is a source of fun. Nobody's safe for the care for lunch.
I talked about the scene in Topsy-Turvy where Gilbert rehearses line readings from a scene.
Corroborative fiddlestick.
And now here is that scene in the Mikado.
Merely corroborative detail intended to give artistic verisimilitude to an otherwise bald and unconvincing narrative.
Corroborative detail, indeed. Corroborative fiddlestick.
The Mikado stars legendary musical comedy stars Kenny Baker and Gene Colan. and it's an enchanting film of a timeless musical, great for holiday viewing. It's available only on DVD, not on tape, and that is a sign of the times. Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this week's show. A big disagreement on Magnolia. Joyce says it's ludicrous. I say it's one of the year's best films. We split again on Stuart Little. Joyce found it charming. I found it creepy. And another split decision on Anna and the King. I thought it forced romance where it didn't fit. Joyce found it visually beautiful, and she liked the romantic chemistry. 2 thumbs down on Bicentennial Man, another soppy comedy starring Robin Williams. And finally, 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up for Mike Leigh's Topsy-Turvy.
We've only scratched the surface there. I wish we had another hour to talk about that.
It is a great film, and so is Magnolia. Thanks a lot for being here. It's been a lot of fun. Remember, you can hear our reviews on the web at ebert-movies.com, part of Go Network, and my new book, Roger Ebert's Movie Yearbook 2000, is now on sale. Next week, reviews of more big holiday movies, including The Talented Mr. Ripley. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.